Hey everybody, what's up? Chad Wesley Smith here, another episode of Beers with Chad. Today I'm going to be talking to you about my 10 favorite 30 for 30 documentaries. I know you got a lot of time on your hands stuck at home with the quarantine, so you can go check these out on ESPN Plus or wherever else you want to find them. Today I am drinking from Pizza Port Brewing down in San Clemente, California. Great pizza, great beer, Swami's IPA. Cheers. And talking about these 30 for 30s, make sure you go to jtsstrength.com, check out all of our online coaching options and all of our AI coaching, powerlifting, powerbuilding, weightlifting, jiu-jitsu, strength and conditioning, all that good stuff. If you're getting an order from Virus, one of my long time favorite companies, been working with Virus for probably 6 or 7 years now, you can use JTS10 and check out Juggernaut Apparel at jtsstrength.com. Subscribe, leave a 5-star review, all that good stuff. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Enjoy.
Welcome to Beers with Chad.
Hey everybody, what's up? Chad Wesley Smith, Beers with Chad here. Today, on this fine Sunday afternoon, I am drinking Swami IPA from right here in Orange County or Carlsbad, depending on which way you want to look at it. Pizza Port Brewing, very good pizza down in San Clemente, also a spot in Carlsbad. I'm not sure which one this one came from, but had a lot of good times eating pizza and drinking beer there with Team Juggernaut. Pomp, what's up, brother? This one's for you. That's good. All right, so as we continue to be stuck in the world of quarantine and hopefully trapped in your house, that's the way it's supposed to be going. You have a lot of time on your hands to watch TV, and there are a few things that I enjoy more in life than, make sure I'm in both of these screens, than 30 for 30s. 30 for 30 from ESPN from, if you listen to the last episode, one of my favorite people, Bill Simmons, executive producer, got that going. Congrats, Bill. Holler at me, I'll come on the ringer, whatever, it'll be cool. They've got way more than 30 of them, but it started as these 30 movies to celebrate the ESPN 30th anniversary, and since I think they've done like 60 or 70 of them, as well as some what are called ESPN Films Presents, but those are really 30 for 30s as well. So if you've got the ESPN Plus app, you can watch all of these because they're all on there, and I think that ESPN is just showing them all the time now too, because they don't have anything else to show. And I wanted to talk about these because the best, what I'm assuming will be number one on this list a month from now, is on its way, The Last Dance, which is a 10-part, which if, basing this off of like OJ Made in America, 10 parts could probably mean 20 hours of viewing pleasure, and I'm looking forward to all 20 of them, covering the 1998 Michael Jordan, final season with the Bulls, all kinds of turmoil. If before that comes out, if you have time, I would highly suggest reading or listening to the audiobook of Playing for Keeps about David Halberstrom, which is also about all Michael Jordan's life and career, but focuses a lot on those last ones as well. So hopping right in, my top 10 30 for 30s. Number 10, and these are in a specific order. Number 10, Pony Excess. Pony Excess is about SMU football, who was this powerhouse in the late 70s, early 80s, and then through just their brazen disregard for NCAA rules and recruiting rules about how you can't pay recruits and pay players and all that stuff, they got what was termed the death penalty, and they just didn't have football for I think 2 seasons, and then had massive restrictions coming back from that. Were playing with little tiny guys, but prior to that had Eric Dickerson, had track and field / football legend Michael Carter. I could do a whole episode just talking about Michael Carter. I tried to hit him up last time I was in Dallas, but was not able to connect with him. He's the national high school record holder in the shot put, most unbreakable record possibly in all of American sports, at 81 feet 3 inches with the high school shot put. Then 8-time NCAA champion while also being an All-American defensive tackle. Then silver medal in the Olympics after his rookie year in the NFL, and then went on to win a couple Super Bowls with the 49ers. So SMU had just monsters. And it's such like a Texas kind of story. I think special part of why I'm so interested in that. My best friend Paul, he and I did track together at the University of California, Berkeley, but he transferred there from SMU. So yeah, that was kind of the SMU connection for it. So that's number 10, Pony Excess. Number 9, this is technically an ESPN film presents, but it's called Catching Hell. It is about Steve Bartman, the Cubs fan who interfered with Moises Alou trying to catch a foul ball there in left field, and which sort of spurred this comeback for the Marlins, for the Cubs to yet again have their heart broken, and it's really about how his life was ruined by this thing, and even, you know, decade plus later, I'm assuming now that the Cubs have actually won the World Series that people have hopefully forgiven Steve Bartman in the same way like Bill Buckner and the Red Sox situation, but just the absolute vitriol that people had for him and the reaction around him and everything. It was very, very interesting insight into that whole situation from all the people around it, because they couldn't interview Steve Bartman because you have to go through a lawyer to do that, and he's not about it. Number 8, this is probably a bit more of a rare pick. It is Soul Man, which is about Sonny Vaccaro, and Sonny Vaccaro is really who built, in a lot of ways, the Nike basketball brand. A multi-billion-dollar industry, because he was the one that got, really signed Michael Jordan to Nike. He started the grassroots basketball movement through AAU and all that kind of stuff. He, when the like Air Jordan 1 type of looking shoe was really big in the Big East, and all the, Georgetown was a power, and all these college basketball teams were wearing the Nikes. He was the first one to do that, to create that relationship between Nike and these universities. So it's a story about that. It's a story about how he's ousted from Nike, then to go on to work for Adidas and Reebok subsequently, starting the grassroots AAU stuff, I think, was at Adidas, because he knew, like, all right, we can't compete with Nike for these guys coming out of college or coming straight high school to the NBA. So we're gonna get them when they're young, when they're 11 years old in AAU. And then he went on to work for Reebok, and just a foundational person in that culture of sneaker culture and the big business of basketball shoes. And then sort of saw this system that he had created, and through seeing that decided, I've kind of done wrong in a lot of situations here, and from that starts working with Charles O'Bannon, or Ed O'Bannon, one of the O'Bannon brothers, who was a star for UCLA back in the mid-90s, to sue the NCAA for the players, the rights to their likenesses, which unfortunately resulted in all the NCAA football and basketball games not existing anymore. But I hear that they're about to make a comeback, so that's exciting. So Soul Man, story of Sonny Vaccaro, very good. Number 7 is Of Miracles and Men, and this is the story of the Miracle on Ice, 1980 Olympic hockey, U.S. defeating the Soviet Union, told from the opposite side, from the Soviet Union side. And the reason that I enjoy it so much, just because it, besides it just being an interesting take on a very well-known story, it also shows a lot of cool clips of the Soviet team training, like dry land, general physical preparation training, And if you're familiar with the montage from Rocky IV of Ivan Drago training in this really fancy, steroid-fueled laboratory, and Rocky training in the barn, the reality of that in the America versus Russia situation was it was the Russians who were training much more in the barn setting, and the Americans more in the laboratory. They were both doing steroids, though I don't know about the hockey guys, but this was the 80s, so fuck it. So it shows some cool clips of that and some interesting insight about how their coach developed, how the Soviet hockey program developed. Because into like the late 50s or early 60s, Russia didn't play hockey, they played bandy. And if you are the most diehard Jug Life podcast fan, you are already familiar with bandy, and you would know it as the Hydrox of hockey. Bandy is a sport recognized by the IOC at the same level that powerlifting is, and it's like hockey, but not. I don't know exactly what it is beyond it's like hockey, but not. So into like the early 60s, Russia had never played hockey. Canada dominated hockey. And from this time that they decided, all right, let's have a hockey team, they just became the best at it in very short order through their great sports school and sports science system. And to hear their coach talk about it, or quotes from him about it, where he said that he had never seen hockey before becoming their hockey coach, and tried to really avoid watching a lot of hockey or any hockey because, as he put it, how could we pass someone, Canada in this case, by following along the same path that they were? Yes, thumbs up to everyone out there. Ruptured tendon in my thumb, surgery 3 weeks ago. I'll have this on for a couple more weeks. How could we pass Canada by following along the same path that they are? An interesting way to think about it. He also talks about how Russian hockey was the 5 men without the puck dictating the actions of the one with the puck, while Canadian hockey was the one with the puck dictating the actions of the 5 others. How if it was 5 Gordie Howes, or how Russia didn't have one person as good as Gordie Howe, Canada's best player, but if they played 5 Gordie Howes versus 5 of the Russians' best player, Russia would win because they played this very team concept. It's an interesting watch. Number 6, This Magic Moment. This Magic Moment is about the Orlando Magic basketball team, and in the early 90s when they got back-to-back number 1 picks, one of those being Shaquille O'Neal, the other one of those being Chris Webber, which they then traded to the Golden State Warriors for Anthony Penny Hardaway. And this was like, I think, the 93 and 94 draft. So I was 7 and 8 years old, and as they kind of rose to prominence, 93, 94, 95, 96, in a time in my life where I just thought that Shaq and Penny and a little Penny doll were the coolest, and I watch NBA Inside Stuff every morning, or like every Saturday morning, and I play basketball in my driveway every day, and played on basketball teams and travel basketball teams, and I had the hoops that would hang off the door, and I'd be dunking on those all day, and it really just connected with me. So watching that was like a fun way to kind of look back at that time in basketball when I was a particularly big, I'd say, basketball fanatic in that kind of early mid-90s times of Shaq and Penny, Michael Jordan, those great Rockets teams with Hakeem Olajuwon, Alonzo Mourning, and Grandmama Larry Johnson on the Hornets. And I know Marissa will enjoy this a lot. She's been pestering me to tell this story. So those Hornets teams, around this time, 93, 94, 95, they had Alonzo Mourning had just come out of Georgetown, Larry Johnson, Grandmama commercials for Reebok. He was on Family Matters for an episode, so love him for that. And they had a point guard named Muggsy Bogues, the shortest player to ever play in the NBA, 5'3". crazy vertical, like a 44 or 45 inch vertical. I've heard Muggsy Bogues would have been an amazing weightlifter, I think. But what Muggsy Bogues did for me as a 7 or 8-year-old basketball fan was, and I'm sure this is a big part of why he was so beloved by fans, is he made you think like, I could play in the NBA because this guy does it and he's so short. So that manifested itself for me as an 8-year-old in getting my dad to, break out the 1994 bazooka-sized camcorder and record me playing basketball in our driveway, as I would do just about every day, and showing off my moves, talking to the camera, talking to the general manager and head coach of the Charlotte Hornets, basically making my case for why I could also play on the Charlotte Hornets. I was like, you guys have Muggsy Bogues, I'm Chad Smith. I didn't use all 3 names back then. You have this short guy, so how about you add an 8-year-old little white kid from Irvine on your team too? This was probably also fueled by watching movies like Rookie of the Year, Little Big League, where children could compete with adults in professional sports. But somewhere, I'm assuming in my parents' the millions of boxes of old pictures and VHS tapes and stuff that my parents have, there is a video of me trying out for the Charlotte Hornets. I later found out that my parents did not mail it to the Charlotte Hornets per my instructions, derailing my future as an NBA player. So still harboring some anger about that, but this magic moment takes me back to a time where I really enjoyed basketball. A huge fan of the NBA. Still am a fan, but that was a particularly fun time. Number 5, the best that never was. The best that never was is the story of Marcus Dupree, a running back phenom from a very small town in Mississippi, Philadelphia, Mississippi, and a kind of a story about his recruiting process. He goes to the University of Oklahoma, doesn't get along with Barry Switzer, gets sort of swindled by this pastor/street agent. It derails his career, his injuries, all kinds of stuff. Just a very interesting look. I mean, one, to see his high school and college film, because this is a guy I'd never heard of. And as you may get the impression, I really like sports a lot. So a guy that I'd never heard of, and then I'm seeing him like, man, he's running for 250 yards a game in like bowl games as a freshman in college, running all these dudes over. So big, so fast, so strong. Some of the things have to be a bit embellished or misremembered. One of the Oklahoma football coaches said that they saw him bench 405 for 10 in high school. Probably not, but still, dude is a freak. Like 6'3", 230, Olympic or national level speed as a sprinter, moves, everything. I want to give honorable mention in this to both You Don't Know Bo, great one, all about Bo Jackson, and then the Herschel Walker 30 for 30 type thing. I think it's an SEC story. Those are also very good. And it makes me think that Herschel Walker, Bo Jackson, Marcus Dupree all came out of high school and played college football in the span of, I think, 3 years, like 79, 81, and 82, 79, 80, and 82, somewhere right around there. And they were so far beyond the physicality of other college football players or other professional football players even at the time. It's kind of crazy to think that they were like at the next level of evolution or whatever, and what would be the equivalent of someone like that now, sort of why doesn't that person exist really, and if they did exist, what would they look like? So these guys were 6'1" to 6'3", 220 to 230 pounds, and all 3 of them national class sprinters. So what would that person look like now relative to the size of the linemen? Because these guys were 230 when their offensive lines were 260 to 280. A 300 pounder was really, really rare. so they were only 30 pounds less than their offensive linemen, and now all the offensive linemen are 300 plus, even some into the mid 300s. So would that be like a running back who's 6'4", 275, and still retains the national class sprinter speed, is a 4.30 40 guy? The only guy who comes to mind like that at all was Brandon Jacobs, who played a couple of years back for the Giants, was reportedly that fast and was that big, but he didn't have moves like these guys. So it makes me think, if these type of people existed before, someone can come along that's that far beyond everyone again, and it would be crazy to see that person. Maybe Derrick Henry is a little bit like that, though he's not the equivalent. He's not even as fast as these guys were, let alone relatively as fast compared to other players. So that one is a really good one, kind of heartbreaking in some moments as well, the best that never was. Number 4, 9.79 asterisk. This is all about Ben Johnson. I'm a track and field guy, so I really enjoy the track side of this. The steroids part is awesome too. That's always interesting. As Ben Johnson was like the first really big athlete to ever get popped for performance-enhancing drugs, which he did right after setting an incredible record, 9.79 seconds, as he crossed the line, celebrating where he could have run even faster. But so I like this just from the track and field story of it, that Charlie Francis, Ben Johnson's coach, is a big influence on my coaching. It's an interesting thing to see the politics of sport in it, as so many of the guys who were in that race eventually tested positive. Carl Lewis, they say tested positive for a stimulant, but then they sort of covered it up. So a very interesting story on just a topic that I enjoy a lot. Number 3, the U and the U part 2. I'm gonna double up on this one. So the University of Miami football team, they were the shit in the 80s, and then they were the shit again in the early 2000s. And that covers kind of both of these time frames. They were brash, they were dancing, they were high-stepping, they were doing what other teams didn't do. And I remember as a little kid, in the early 80s, seeing stuff like University of Miami football, Florida State football, Dallas Cowboys of the early 90s, Deion Sanders, all this stuff. Guys who were doing end zone dances and high stepping in the end zone, and I loved that. I thought it was so cool, and I always had this sort of affinity for University of Miami because of that. Also read the book Cane Mutiny, is an interesting read by Bruce Feldman, a lot about the story of kind of the rise of University of Miami football. And then the U part 2, which covers these late 90s, early 2000s teams. That's when I was playing high school football, so that was a very interesting thing too, because I remember seeing those teams and them just smashing, ripping Nebraska apart in the national championship, and then one of the most talented teams ever losing a bullshit game because of a bullshit pass interference call to Ohio State. But they were so talented, to have a roster that at running back has Willis McGahee, or Edgerrin James, who's backed up by Clinton Portis, who's backed up by Willis McGahee, throw Frank Gore in the mix there, Santana Moss, Sonoris Moss, Andre Johnson, Reggie Wayne at wide receiver. Your tight end group is Jeremy Shockey, backed up by Kellen Winslow, just all these incredible linebackers, Vilma, DJ Williams, Ed Reed at safety, Sean Taylor at safety, Mike Rump, Buchanan, all these guys. Just insanely talented teams, broke all these records for most first-round draft picks ever from one team, most draft picks in a year, all this stuff. So those are really cool ones to see. Number 2, OJ Made in America, 5 parts, 10 hours. I've watched all of it more than once, more times than I care to admit in a setting like this, but it's great. It covers, it has a lot of historical aspect to it, which I really enjoy. I was a history major in college. Plus, it covers an event that I was very aware of as a kid, as this was happening in 1994, I was 8 years old, but couldn't understand really then. I remember June 1994, June 17th, 1994 is actually another 30 for 30. That's the only reason I know the specific date of the white Bronco chase. What my parents kind of making me watch it on TV, telling me like this is this historic moment. And the only reason it kind of clicked with me, like, yes, I'm interested to watch this, was I knew that OJ Simpson was a really good football player, so I was into that. And I'd seen him in the Naked Gun movies, so I thought that was interesting. Plus, he got first spotted on the 405 freeway at Irvine Center Drive, which is in Irvine, which is my hometown. So I was like, Irvine Center Drive, the dentist's office is over there. That's where all this is happening, at the dentist's office. So that was, it's a really interesting one, but at the time, I kind of got sick of OJ stuff because it was just always on TV. It took over every station. When I'd get home from school and I wanted to watch Saved by the Bell, no, Saved by the Bell wasn't on. It was OJ stuff all the time. Now, as an adult, through OJ Made in America and the OJ Simpson show, The People versus OJ Simpson on FX, I now understand, I get why it was on TV all the time. It was insanely interesting and had all of these crazy twists and everything going on. So the OJ Made in America, it's got the history side of things, sort of about the racial tension in Los Angeles through the Watts riots in the 60s, Rodney King, LA riots in the 90s, then it's coming off of that. We have OJ, and it's just a very interesting look at OJ Simpson's life, the culture of Los Angeles, and then the last episode of it is about OJ's post-conviction life, and holy shit, the man's insane. He has no remorse, definitely. He's just batshit crazy. Hopefully he doesn't hear this, because he'd probably try and murder me. So finally, my number one favorite 30 for 30 is The Two Escobars. The Two Escobars is about Pablo Escobar and Andres Escobar, no relation, but Pablo Escobar, of course, drug king of the world, and Andres Escobar is a defenseman for the Colombian national team. And so it's about this rise of Colombian soccer being fueled by drug money through the club system there, or the professional teams, being owned by these Cali cartel and Medellin cartel and stuff, and they're putting all the money into it, and so Colombian soccer goes from really not a big deal to a world power, and then they have some really crazy stories about, Pablo Escobar, flying professional soccer players from Europe and all over the world to his home, to his, compound there up in the mountains of Colombia to play pickup soccer games just for him and his drug lord friends to watch and bet on. That would be like, I just fly LeBron James and AD and Giannis and everyone, come play basketball at my house for me and my friends to watch. How fucking rich and powerful do you have to be to make that kind of thing happen? And there's awesome soccer clips in it. I'm not really a huge soccer fan. I played a lot of soccer growing up, but don't really get into watching it now. But if soccer was like the clips in the Two Escobars movie, I'd totally be into it. These professional games in Colombia in the late 80s, where everyone is just coked out of their minds, including the players, and they're throwing shit on the field and all this stuff. It's insane. The save that their goalie makes, the goalie with just the flowing mullet Jerry curl kind of Rick James haircut, where they take a shot from way out and he waits and jumps and scorpion kicks the ball with both feet in this front flip deal. Amazing. Rene Higuita is the goalie's name. And then Rene Higuita gets in trouble later because they catch him coming down from La Catedral, the like private prison of Pablo Escobar, because he was up there partying with Pablo. And it's like, obviously this guy likes to fucking party. He's risking his life, we later find out, by making this insane save. You know, if he fucked that up, everyone would have been like, what an idiot. And because he probably would have cost some drug lord, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars by trying to make this outlandish save and fucking it up, they would have killed him. Because that's what ends up happening with the co-star, I guess, you know, co-focus of this documentary, Andres Escobar, this really talented defender for the Colombian team. They come to play in the 1994 World Cup, and while they're playing the United States here at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, a game that I was at with my dad, little 8-year-old CWS in the stands there cheering on Team USA, Alexi Lawless, Kobe Jones, and the like. There was an own goal. You know, the U.S. centered the ball, and Andres Escobar slid to try and stop it, and in doing so, knocked it right into his own goal, leading to I think a tie actually in that game. But the Colombian team not advancing from the group stage, and when they got back to Colombia, Andres Escobar was murdered out at a nightclub. So that one is really interesting to me because, one, I have this personal experience of being at the game and going to a couple games in that World Cup with my dad. My dad coached soccer for like 25 years, so that's like a really special kind of memory with him. It has the history kind of element, which again, I was a history major. It's got drug lords and violence and money and all kinds of stuff. It's really, really good. A lot of subtitles, and I think a very underrated, but probably by most people, 30 for 30s. So go check that out. So yeah, those are my top 10 30 for 30s. So go give them a watch if you've got the ESPN Plus app, or you can find them, I'm sure, a bunch of other ways. Swami's IPA, that's a good one. Thanks for watching. Thanks for virtually hanging out with me. Hopefully everyone's staying safe out there. You know, JTS Strength, all that stuff, coaching, books, free stuff like limited equipment training template, apparel, all of the above. Thank you. Thanks for watching. Cheers.